I was reaching down to help my son tie his shoe when he flinched back and said, "Don't touch me. Coach says men do that to get close to kids." I went still. My 8-year-old was looking at me like I was something dangerous. "Theo, where did you hear that?" He pressed himself against the kitchen counter, arms wrapped tight around his chest. "Coach Dell said any man who wants to be alone with a kid is grooming them. He said even dads. He said if a dad tries to keep secrets or get you by yourself, you run." My whole chest went cold. "Buddy, that's not— I'm your dad. I love you. There's nothing wrong with me helping you." He gasped like I'd confirmed something. "Coach said you'd say exactly that," he whispered, and bolted to his room. That night I called the rec center that ran his after-school sports program. The front desk picked up cheerful, then went flat the second I said the name Dell. He has his own approach. Some parents misread it, but his kids' attendance numbers are the best we've ever had. I demanded a meeting with the program director, and after 10 minutes of going in circles, I got one for the next morning. I walked in planning to be calm. Then the director leaned back and said, "So, you're another dad who's worked up about Coach Dell," and I nearly lost it. "Your coach has my son convinced I'm a predator," I said. He just shrugged. "Are you?" I stared at him, made myself breathe, and asked to see the program's safety materials. He shook his head. "Not standard practice." I went home and tried, gently, to talk to Theo. The moment I stepped toward his door, he backed into the corner. "Coach said don't be alone with men. If you come in, I'm calling 911. My 8-year-old, shaking, threatening to call the police on me. I backed out of the doorway because I didn't know what else to do. The next afternoon I came early to pick up, hoping to compare notes with other parents. The first mom saw me coming and pulled her daughter against her hip and turned away. I heard her murmur to another parent, "That's the dad Theo talks about." My stomach dropped. He'd been repeating this stuff to the other kids, and he'd used my name. I wasn't a worried father anymore. I was the man on the warning list. I filed a complaint with the center's board that afternoon. The next morning, before I heard anything back, 2 people with lanyards and a clipboard were at my door. Child services. A report had been made. They needed to speak with Theo alone. I had no choice. I sat in my own living room for 40 minutes, while a stranger questioned my son in his bedroom. When the caseworker came out, she didn't look at me like a parent. "Your son says your hugs are bad. He says a coach told him fathers hurt children." I poured out everything. Dell, the director, the parents in the lot. She nodded the way people nod when they're just waiting for you to finish, and said the investigation was now open. I had one card left. I demanded a sit-down with Dell himself, with the board present. A week later, I walked into that conference room ready to go to war. The director was there, a board member, and then Dell came in. And he wasn't what I'd built up in my head. Younger than I expected, soft-spoken, eyes down, hands knotted together like he was waiting to be hit. The board member cleared his throat. "Before anything else, you should understand some context." I muttered that it had better be good. He explained, Dell had grown up in a home where things had genuinely been done to him by a man when he was around Theo's age. He'd never gotten help for it. Years later, sitting through a basic safety course where an instructor cited a statistic about who most offenders are, he'd latched onto it as absolute, unbending truth because it matched the only thing he'd ever known. He'd been teaching it to kids ever since, certain he was the one adult finally protecting them. Dell looked up at me. "I wasn't trying to take your son from you," he said, voice cracking. "I thought I was keeping him from what happened to me, and I believed him. I could see it. He wasn't cruel. He was a wound that had never closed, passing itself on. I didn't drop my complaint to make it go away, and I didn't pretend it hadn't done real damage, but I told the board I didn't want him punished into the ground. I wanted him out of contact with kids until he got actual help, and I wanted them to bring in a real counselor to undo what he'd planted in those children." They agreed in writing. The hardest part came after. It took months, a family counselor, and a patient caseworker who eventually closed the case in my favor. But the night Theo finally walked across the kitchen on his own and leaned into me for a hug, no flinch, no fear. I held on and didn't let the tears land where he could see them.